because it's a 3-color channel, RGB. Got it? And if you want to convert grayscale to color, you have to duplicate one channel into 2 more channels. That means if you want to convert grayscale image into color image, then this is also 0 to 255, this is also 0 to 255, this is also 0 to 255. That means same information I will project on this axis also and this axis also. Then a grayscale will be converted into color image. Okay, so let me share my entire screen and talk more about the concepts of medical imaging. Now here you can see. So far I have been discussing about the data, especially images data, what it is made up of. So if you are working on a problem statement, let us say brain tumor detection. If you are working on this project, okay, you are having 2 folders. One is yes, another is no. In this 2 folder, you are having images. These are tumor images, these are non-tumor images. Let us say you are having 5,000 images in both. It doesn't matter whether they are of the same size, they can be of different resolutions. It has been given to you that it's a grayscale image. It's a grayscale, it's an MRI image. Now what you are going to do? Your task is to perform classification. You want an AI model to classify. If you give an image to this model, it will let you know whether there is a tumor, whether there is not a tumor. So you want to automate the task. That is what you want to do. And we are following that in artificial. What's AI? Making machine intelligent. How you can make machine intelligent? You have to feed the data into the machine. And you have to train that machine over an algorithm with the data. That is AI. Ultimately, I want to make human mimic. Same as like humans. That is what AI. So here I am trying to make a machine which can understand whether there is a tumor or whether there is not a tumor. Okay. So what I am going to do? I want to make a machine understand that this is an image, this is a tumor image, this is a non-tumor image. Okay, so what will be the proceedings? You have to analyze the data. Here you can do some visualization. You can make some plots to see what kind of images you are available with. Okay. The most important thing here is data pre-processing. In data pre-processing, you need to perform cleaning or you need to perform various transformations over the data. What kind of transformation I am talking about? Well, you are having a tumor image and you are having a non-tumor image. Okay. Well, first of all, the idea is to convert the images, all the images, into same resolution. That is very much important. We never work on different resolution images. You want to convert all the images into same resolution. That means you need to rescale your data. Well, let me pick up. I want to do all the images should be of this size. 224, 224. Let's see. So I will be converting all the images, whether they are big, whether they are small, in this resolution only. 224, 224. One channel. It's a grayscale image, one channel. Okay. Else, if you want to use an algorithm based upon transfer learning, if you know, transfer learning, where you use pre-trained models, which already have a knowledge about images. I'm not saying medical images, which are having knowledge about images. Pre-trained models. Like if you have heard VGG16, VGG19, inception, exception, there are so many models, pre-trained models, which are trained on a benchmark data set that is called as ImageNet, which is having millions of images, different categories. So these models are trained over this benchmark ImageNet data set. And we use these models in medical imaging initially to perform like detection or classification. Okay, that is what we do. And such work has been going on from 2015 till up to like now we have been advanced and so many novel algorithms have been built. But started from 2015, still we have a scope. We can do something with these images in 2025 with these algorithms. Okay, so if you want to use pre-trained model transfer learning, then you need to convert grayscale into color image because pre-trained models work upon 3 channel. They don't work upon 1 channel. They work upon 3 channel. Got it? Or if you want to create an algorithm from your side, then you can go ahead with this grayscale also, not an issue. So you do have the options. Either you build your own algorithm, either you use a pre-trained model where you can apply transfer learning. And then you have to, in deep learning, you have to add some layers. You can do feature extraction. Then you can add a neural network to perform the classification. Now, what is this? And how we can perform the task? Understand it in a very simple way. You are having any image. You have converted it into 224 resolution. Okay, got it. This is what you have done. Now you will give this image to a model to get trained. Model is a deep learning or machine learning, whatever. It's your choice which model you want to build, because if it's a deep learning, then you are going to use neural network. Machine learning models are statistical models. But it doesn't mean that statistics doesn't apply in deep learning. Everywhere it is applicable. So you are going to convert an image into this resolution. Then you will give it to the model to understand the patterns in the data. What models do? What the model do? Models understand patterns in the data. Models try to identify relationship among the features. If model understand the relationship, if model can identify the patterns in the data, this is done with the help of maths. Okay, everything is done mathematically with the help of maths. If you do talk about a neural network, this is a neuron. You give an input to the neuron. The output from the neuron is Y, that is written as WX plus B. W is weight, B is bias. Weight is the strength of interconnection between the two neurons in the different layers. Bias is an error term. Ultimately, this equation is inspired from y equal to mx plus c, which is your equation of a line. Okay. So, what I said, you are having an image, you have converted into a specific resolution 224, then you have to give it to the model. Let's say I'm giving it to a neural network. This is a neural network, a layer, then I'm having a layer, then again I'm having a layer on which neurons are present. Okay, neurons are present. So, this will be your input layer, this will be your output layer, this will be your hidden layer. From here, the information flows, and at the output layer, you are going to get the result. Whether there is a tumor, whether there is a no tumor. Now you will ask the question, sir, you have performed pre-processing, you have converted image into this resolution, and you have given directly it into a neural network. But does every feature present in the image is important? Does everything present in the image is important? I will say no. Not everything present in the image is important. So, sir, what we can do? Because if you feed an image into a neural network directly, it will take a lot of time. Also, this system is complex in nature. We want to reduce computational complexity. This is what we call as a research. So what is research? In research, we build new algorithms. Okay, fine. You give new maths or layers into the algorithm. You have to see computational complexity also. You have to improve the accuracy, performance. This will be the research. Well, you have seen already a lot of algorithms has been built on brain tumor classification. They have achieved 99% accuracy. So why they are doing this thing? What is the reason? 99% is enough. What else you require? Well, the point is what is required. Data is growing. Complexity is increasing. Data growing, along with that, there is challenges. There are challenges. So we require advanced algorithms, new techniques to identify, to overcome those challenges. Along with that, we want to reduce computational complexity. We don't want to put resources, huge resources. That is also expensive in nature. I require less memory, less processor, but I want high accuracy. Accuracy should be 99%, but it should come on minimum, limited memory, limited processing unit. Then it is a research. Then you will be getting plus point. My goal is not only to achieve 99% accuracy. I may get 98% also. I will not bother. But the point is, have I reduced the computational complexity? So how you can do that? Well, it's not a new idea. Image will be after pre-processing. It will be passed to convolution. I hope you know about convolution. Convolution is a technique by which we can extract features from image. This is what we can do. As I told above, that every feature is not important in an image. But why you are training your model with the entire image? If everything is not important, why you are wasting your time? it's better you do one thing. You just only extract the relevant features and then train the model with that. Complexity will be reduced, accuracy will be high. For that, what kind of maths we require? What kind of formula we require? What kind of technique we require? That is convolution. This is what we call as a convolution. So, convolution is a feature extraction technique where if we are having an image matrix, I will apply a filter matrix. This is filter. This is image. I will apply this filter matrix over image matrix. This will be multiplying. I will show you. There will be multiplication of image with filter and the resultant matrix we are going to achieve. This is called as feature map. And the size of this matrix will be less than the original image. This is a feature map. Okay, let me show you. I do have the notes. Okay, here it is. Here are the entire notes which I will share to everyone so you can read. Fine. You can see input image. Here is the convolution which we are applying. And what type? Here you can see the working of convolution. If you are having an input image whose pixel intensities are mentioned here, 10, 10, 10, like at the end 0, 0. This is kernel or filter. Either you can call it as kernel or either you can call it as filter. So this filter will operate over image and there will be point-to-point multiplication. That means 1 will be multiplied by 10 plus. 2 will be multiplied by 10 plus. 1 multiplied by 10 plus. 0 into this, 0 into this, 0 into this, and so on. And here you are going to get the answer. Okay, fine. This is feature map. We have extracted the information from the image with the help of a filter. This is what happens at convolution. So the formula or the maths for convolution, it's written like this. Close integration f into g. It's a dot product of two functions. We can say one is the image, one is the kernel or the filter. Got it? So we have to give a pre-processed image to convolution layer which comprises of filters, number of filters. It can be 32, it can be 64, it can be 128. Okay, in this number of filters. So image will be passed to convolution layer where you can see these 32 filters which are arranged in this way. Each filter is a different matrix, remember. This matrix is different, this matrix is different, this matrix is, but the point is they are having a resolution same. Let us say 3 cross 3. So all these kernel or filters are having a resolution 3 cross 3, but the entries which are present in it are different. So my image will operate with this, I will get a result. Will operate with this, I will get a result. Will operate with this, I will get a result, and so on. So if I say I have an image 224224 and it has been passed through a convolution with 32 filter, the resultant will be reduced in the size of the image. Let us say 222, comma 32. As many as filters you do have, as many as channel you will get. This concept is straightforward. You got this much images which are stacked one above the other of resolution this thing. So the result will be 32 channel. Again, if you pass this thing to 64, let us say now again the size will be reduced 220, 64. Now this will be the size of the image. So as you pass image by convolution, the size of the image get decrease. Also, we don't have only convolutions. We do have one more layer that is called as pooling layer. Pooling is a dimensionality reduction technique. Okay, it will reduce the dimensions of the data. Again, the point is I don't want to work on entire data. Entire data is not important for me. I need to look in images specific regions. I want to capture the features of those regions and then I need to give it to the model for training. Got it? So with convolution, we do have pooling also. So architecture is built like this. Image will be passed to convolution, then pooling, then convolution, then pooling, then convolution, then pooling. Then you are going to use a layer, let us say called as flatten, and then you are going to introduce a neural network, and then from here you are going to get the answer. Okay. So till here we perform feature extraction, and then here after feature extraction, this is neural network. So this is fully connected. This is fully connected network. It's called as fully connected. We'll train the neurons with these features, extracted features. So pooling is of different types. We can have max pooling, we can have a min pooling, we can have average pooling, we can have global average pooling. Very much important. Let us say you are having an image, you have passed through the convolution and you got this answer. Let's say the answer is this: 10, 9, 8, 7, 8, 6, 4, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, 8, 7, 6. And this is what the result you got after convolution. You are applying pooling to it, or I would say max pooling. So max pooling 2 cross 2. So it will pick up 2 cross 2 matrix here and it will fetch the maximum value present in it. So it will fetch 10. From here it will fetch 8. From here it will fetch 4. From here it will fetch 8. So this is your answer after applying pooling to the convolution. Max pooling means you are fetching maximum information from the image. Min pooling means you are fetching minimum information from the image. Average pooling means you can take the average of all these values. This is what you can do. And that will be the answer. So we use max pooling. We use average pooling also. More importantly, we use global average pooling. So what happens in a global average pooling? Well, let us say this is your image. You have passed it to convolution with 32 filter. So you will get all these 32, like 32 is a channel. Okay, so you will get an image. That will be having 32 filters or 32 channels present. You will be doing average of all the values which are present in the first, average average of all the values present in the second, and so on. Do the average of all. So this will be an average value. Let us say A1, A2, A3, A4, and so on. If you make a vector of it, A1, A2, A3, A4, this is global average pooling. So average all the values present in it, and just make in this format. This is global average pooling. Got it? Mostly now we are using global average pooling. So how the architecture has been built? Architecture is built like this. Convolution, then max pooling, then convolution, then max pooling, then convolution. Okay, then convolution. And then we can have a pooling. We can then apply global average pooling. Gap. Alternative is you can have all these, you can have flatten layer. Flatten layer convert high dimensional data into low dimension or in 1D, but flatten doesn't do average. Whatever be the values which are present here in this, it will arrange them. For example, you are having 1, 2, 3, 4. It will convert it into 1, 2, 3, 4 in 1D. So this 2 cross 2 will be converted into 1 cross 4 in one dimension. Okay, so all these will be converted into 1D and will be kept in this way. All the values will be present. But in global average pooling, we are taking the average of it, then filling. But in flatten, we are considering all the values. Okay, so either you can use flatten at the end, or either you can use global average pooling, then you hand over this thing to the neural network or training program. Okay. So this is how the convolution worked. This is how the convolution came into the picture. And it is very important for us to design an architecture, an algorithm which can extract, because medical images, medical data is challenging. It is very much challenging. It's understanding patterns here. Understanding patterns, identifying what is the relationship between the pixels, difficult. So we had to develop an algorithm, we had to design an algorithm which can effectively extract the features from the image. Later on, it can train a neural network which can classify. So CNN started with very basic layered architecture, like initially 3 convolution layer, later on it converted into 5 convolution, and so on. I have told some of the architecture names, transfer learning, like VGG16, VGG19, and so on. These are all convolution based. Okay. So, like the research papers, what they were built like, we give an image to a model which is made up of VGG16, let's say. We are going to take the knowledge of VGG16 and give it to global average pooling layer, put some dense layers ahead of it, D1, D2, D3. Then perform the training of only this. In transfer learning, we share the knowledge, but we don't touch the original model. Original model or a base model will always remain untrainable. We are not going to train it. It is already trained on images data. Why should we retrain? We just only want the knowledge from it. Once we get the knowledge, then we will train the layers which are present next to it. Only the training will be done for this. This is what we do in the transfer learning. However, as I told, you can also build a model from scratch. It's your choice. You can integrate convolution layer, pooling layer, convolution layer, pooling layer, convolution, pooling, convolution, pooling. It's your choice. So deep learning is a skill. Deep learning is an art. You have to experiment. How many layers I should put so that I will get an accuracy of 95? Many times I have been asked a question. How you will know, sir? How you will know that this much convolution will come, this much pull? I'm trying. I'm experimenting. I'm applying images to the convolution. I'm integrating the layers. I'm seeing how much convolution, how much filter should be there. I'm just keep on experimenting the things. And if I get high accuracy, then I finalize. So in order to learn convolution, it is mandatory that you should know the basic models. If you know the basic architectures, then only you can build your own architecture, your own model, else it is very much difficult. So the basic architectures, you have to learn from transfer learning. Basic architectures, LeNet, AlexNet, then I told about VGG, then Inception, then Exception, then ResNet, then EfficientNet. We do have squeeze and excitation. Okay, we are having depth-wise separable convolution. There are so many things which needs to be learned. Okay. So if you want to design an algorithm, if you want to design a technique from your side, it is mandatory for you to learn all these techniques. Then only you can proceed ahead. Because right now, as I told, keeping convolution in a sequence is not a good idea. That is why what the architectures came now, they do have skip connections. Skip connections, that means they do have parallel connections. So I can have convolution, I can connect this convolution ahead with like this. And whatever be the result I'm getting from here, whatever be the result I'm getting here, I can concatenate and then I can proceed ahead. So now there is a skip connection, residual connections. Residual connection. It can be like this. This is our input x. Let us say this is the function f of x. You are going to get the answer y. This x will be again tagged here and it will be concatenated with y. So the answer will be x plus y. This is residual connection. So in order to maintain, listen my words very carefully. In order to maintain gradient flow, or I would say information flow in better way, you have to introduce skip connections in your architecture. Never try to build an architecture which is having only C in a sequence. You have to make skip or residual connections. Then only you will have some good architecture. There will be proper information of gradient flow. I can maintain the information because, as I said, if you keep C, convolutions and all these things in a sequence, there will be reduction in the information because convolution always reduces the information. Okay. Once the information is reduced as much, then what we are left at the end? Also, we never use so many C in a sequence. We don't want to diminish our image. At one time, it may, if you start with 224, at one time, it may reach to 7. If you apply convolution, don't go below this. We don't have anything left to train. That's what we need to take care. That is why skip connections, residual connections, parallel connections are now built. Okay, we can have like this 3x3 kernel, 3x3 kernel. Okay, this is the layer where these two are present. We take the input, we get something from here, and then we can concatenate, and then we can proceed. Sometimes we can have 3x1, 1x3 also. This is what we can do with the kernels. We can further factorize. Factorization. Factorization. So in inception and exception architecture, there are factorization of the kernel also. There's so many things researchers are introduced in their architectures. And moreover, we take kernel or filter of size 3 cross 3 or 5 cross 5. Very least 7 cross 7. 9 cross 9, no. This is very, very rare. This one also. Mostly we use this 3 cross 3. And why odd? Because I need to capture the details, the information which is present at the border also and which is present at the center also. That is why odd is convenient. You can ask a question, sir, why you are not taking 2 cross 2 kernel or filter? Why you took 3 cross 3 only? Because this is a convenient way where you can work on border region also of an image, you can work at the center or other regions also by taking odd number of filter resolution. Got. So this is how you can work. You can build an architecture, you can build a model. Okay, so what we have studied so far, we are having a medical imaging challenge. And I do focus a lot on this particular area. The reason is many people, not only from my country, from different countries, they are working on medical healthcare problems. Okay, I got very good response when I do share a project over LinkedIn related to healthcare. Okay, and everyone is looking to publish the papers to develop some novel algorithm. So at least you should have a basics related to it. You are having the knowledge. I am just summarizing the things and making it much more easier. Got it. What fundamentals you should know? You should know about image type. Then you have to take care of the resolution, pre-processing you have to perform. In pre-processing, there is one more thing, augmentation, image augmentation. That means you can perform different variations of on an image. You can rotate an image, you can translate an image, you can shift an image. There are so many things you can do over an image. Sir, why we are doing this thing? We are having an image. Why you want to rotate? Why you want to shift? Why you want to translate this image? The reason is we never gave a model a simple data for its training. No. We always give challenging data to model so that in adverse situations also model can understand whether there is a tumor or not. Okay, so person can give a rotated images, person can give a translated images, person can give a shifted images, any kind of images can be given. With this data, we will train the model, then our model will be highly impactful. Got it? So data augmentation, in pre-processing, this data augmentation is been one of the part where we do convert image into a resolution. We perform augmentation, the one which I told about. Then we also perform normalization of an image. That means dividing each and every pixel value by 255 to convert each pixel between 0 to 1. So you will see, after all these pre-processing steps, you will see that image is having this information, 0.9, 0.8, 0.1, 0.25, 0.31 and so on. We normalize the values which are present in an image, or sometimes we say standardize. We never give data to a deep learning model without standardization or normalization. Because we need stability in training. And stability can only be achieved when you normalize or stabilize the data, then give it to the deep learning model. This is core technical part. Got it? It's a basics also in deep learning. Never give a data to the deep learning model without standardization. But to standardize, then you have to give the data to the deep learning model for the training. As training will be destabilized, fluctuations will be there. Got it? And after doing all these things, as I told that you have to build your model, you have to build your architecture. For that, you have to refer to the existing research papers, what architecture they have given, what accuracy they have achieved, how they have integrated the layers, what new concept they have introduced. Is there any new maths? Because maths is very much important here. You should be good in maths. Okay, you should know what's happening in the architecture during training program. So once you are good in this thing, you have to develop your own architecture in medical imaging. That's what the title is, AI Precise. Precise means I want to make you concerned, I want to make you focus upon what is required to be done in medical imaging. Then you train your model and then see what happens. For that, I do have a project for you. Let me show you a project that is brain tumor classification. This is my Kaggle account and you can find me over the Kaggle. We'll see so many projects related to medical healthcare. So many projects with different algorithms. Okay. So in this, I have taken brain tumor multimodal image dataset. This is the dataset. Let me tell you. This is the dataset, which comprises of CT scan images and MRI images. Okay, CT scan images also and MRI images also it consists of. In CT scan, I am having healthy and tumor images, two folders. I told you now, when I was teaching, I told you that we are having two folders, let's say brain tumor or not. So let's say healthy and tumor, CT scan images, you can see. This is CT scan images, which are healthy in nature, healthy. And then I am having tumor images also. Here you can see, these are tumor images. CT scan, and it's not color, it's a grayscale image. Similarly, I am having brain tumor MRI images, same two folders, healthy and tumor. In healthy, if I click, you can see these are MRI images. These are healthy. And I am having tumor images also. Okay. Fine. So two categories I am having. There could be multiple categories also. Not mandatory to. There could be multiple categories also. That is called as multi-classification. So you can have a binary classification. You can have multi-classification. In binary classification, you have two classes to classify. In multi-classification, you have more than two classes to classify. It can be 3, 4, 5, whatever. Right now, I'm having a binary classification problem, whether it is healthy, whether it is a tumor. Okay, got it. You're seeing the grayscale images. So how I proceeded, let me have a discussion related to my notebook, what I have prepared. Well, I have loaded the data. I hope you know about how to work on Kaggle. Kaggle is a data science to do the projects. It's a website where you can get a lot of data. You can get reference codes also. And you can prepare your own codes. That's what I have done here. So like what I did is I loaded the data and then my approach, which I do follow. Let me tell you what is my approach. My approach is I create data frame. You know what data frame, DF, which you study, in basic data science, pandas and all. I create a data frame. That means arrangement of data in row and column format. So what I will be having here, I will be having image path and the label or the category. This will be the path of the image, label will be, okay, healthy. This will be the path of the image, label will be, okay, tumor, healthy, tumor, and so on. You can see. So, I go very simple. I make a data frame. Here I will be having image path and I will be having a label. Healthy or tumor. After preparing data frame, I do some basics. df.head, print the first 5 rows of the data frame. df.tail, print the last 5 rows of the data frame. Okay, and then df.shape, print the rows and number of rows, columns of the data frame. df.columns, print the column names in the data frame. There are no duplicates in the data frame. There are no null values present in the data frame. df.info, just to display the information. Information like, okay, total 5,000 images we are having, 5,000 labels we are having 2 columns. Okay, I do have unique values in the label, that is healthy and the tumor. And tumor I am having 3,000 images, healthy I am having 2,000 images. So it's unbalanced data. It's unbalanced data. Okay, doesn't matter. Here, in the next code, I did some visualization. You can see, I made a count plot. 3,000 tumor, 2,000 healthy. I made pie plot also. So these basic plots you have to put in your research paper that, okay, we are taking this data set from this repository and it comprises of this images. This is the number of images present in the data set. Okay, fine. And then here I am displaying 5 images from each category. These are 5 healthy images, these are 5 tumor images. Now from here only you will see that the resolution of images is not same. This is a small image, this is big image. Resolution is not same. So we need to, in processing, pre-processing will convert all the images into the same resolution. Before that, there is one more thing which I found, that the images are unbalanced. The labels are unbalanced. I am having 3,000 and 2,000. These are the numbers, 3,000 and 2,000. These are the numbers. We never train our model by unbalanced data. It is mandatory for us to balance these. If you train your model with unbalanced data, then your model will be biased. It will be more towards 3,000 images, because as much as you made a model to learn from which category, then it will be learning that thing only. Okay, so I need to balance my data. In order to balance my data, there are certain techniques which you can follow. You can perform oversampling. You can perform undersampling. You can apply SMART algorithm, synthetic minority oversampling technique, to create a synthetic data. In oversampling, we increase the minority class equal to the majority class by creating duplicates. In undersampling, we reduce the majority class equal to the minority class by removing the images. So if you do oversampling, 2,000 will be equal to 3,000 by duplicates. If you're doing undersampling, 3,000 will be reduced to 2,000. Anyhow, we need to balance. If you're applying SMART, then it will create synthetic data. Actually, I'm not looking here for the synthetic one. Let's say we are doing oversampling. So with oversampling, I will make 3,000, 3,000 each. Well, I don't have anything real present. 2,000 is the only thing which is present. But I need to balance my data, so I'm creating duplicates of it. I'm copying the images, 1,000 images. So it's oversampled. Now 3,000, 3,000. Healthy also, tumor also. That's what I have done in my code. Okay, here you can see. I use random oversample. And I perform the oversampling, got same number of images, 3,000. As you very well know, that in deep learning we are having a framework called as TensorFlow, Keras, we are having PyTorch also. These are the frameworks. In deep learning, the popular framework is like TensorFlow and PyTorch. We can take these frameworks to perform deep learning computations. Okay. So whatever be the model you are going to make, whatever be the layers you want to add in the model, all will come from TensorFlow or from PyTorch. It depends on either of them you can use. I'll use TensorFlow. TensorFlow is Google product. PyTorch is Meta product. Both are different, but the ideology is same. They are built to perform deep learning computations. They are the frameworks actually. Got it. So with this importing of the TensorFlow, I imported the TensorFlow, all these libraries, TensorFlow, STF, TensorFlow, from TensorFlow import Keras. We do have model sequential. We call the model as sequential model. Then we can introduce the layers, convolution layer, pooling layer, flatten layer, dense layer, activation, dropout, all these basics layers we can import. Got it. And here, what I did, I divided my data into train, test, and valid. Train, test, and valid. This is what we do. We divide our data always in training, testing, and the validation. Fine. In training, I am keeping 80% of the data. Testing, I am keeping 10% of the data. Validation, I am keeping 10% of the data. So while training only, I will do the validation. Whether the training is going correct or not. Once your model got trained, I will do the testing with the rest of the 10% data. This is what I am going to do. Got it. Fine. Then here I have built my, this is your pre-processing task. I told that you have to convert the image into some specific resolution. You have to rescale the image, that means divide each and every pixel value by 255. So perform the normalization. So converting image into 224, 3 channel, and then dividing each pixel by 255. This is a normalizing process. Overall, it's a pre-processing. It's an image pre-processing. Okay, got it. Fine. So I haven't done augmentation in this particular code. No augmentation here. I just performed image transformation into 224, 3 color channel, and I performed normalization of the image. I haven't done the transformations, but you will get my reference other codes where you can find the transformations also. Got it. Then after dividing your data, I activated the GPU's graphic processing unit, because if you work with the images, large amount of data, you require the GPU. And in Kaggle, you get free GPU for 30 hours in a week. Okay, so I prefer the Kaggle notebook where I get the GPU, free GPUs for 30 hours. So I'm using 2 GPUs that is available with me. Okay, and here is the architecture which I have built. This is my architecture which I have built. So here you are seeing it's a big architecture. What you have done in this architecture, I have incorporated squeeze and excitation block. I have incorporated average to max pooling. I have incorporated depth-wise separable convolution. I have incorporated Fibonacci series of maths in terms of adding layers. How many filters? But filters should be not like that. 32, 64, 128. No. I added the layers, convolution, the filters in it in a form of a Fibonacci series, like 21, then 34. 21 plus 34 is 55. So you know about Fibonacci series. 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13. So these two sum will be result this. This two sum will result this. This two sum will result this. This two sum will result this, and so on. In math, there are so many series, you can try anything. I tried Fibonacci. I have also tried arithmetic series. I have also tried geometric series. I have also tried harmonic progression. You want to bring novelty in your work, na? How you will say that my algorithm is new? How you will say? You will write, in my algorithm, I have used this much series and on the concept of that, I have incorporated convolution layer with this number of filter. It is inspired from this particular series. And not only I have done in my architecture this thing, I have introduced skip connections also. So you will see what I have introduced. I have introduced squeeze and excitation block. I have introduced average to max pooling. I have introduced depthwise separable convolution. I have introduced Fibonacci series kernels in the convolution. I have also introduced skip connections or residual connections. So in squeeze and excitation, I am focusing upon each and every channel separately. Each channel separately treated. In average to max, I am focusing upon the border regions. So average pooling minus 2 into max is equal to border regions focus. Reminder, it's a max. You can apply 2 into average minus max. You can apply average minus max. You can do some addition. So try some experiment in an image where you want to focus, which region you want to focus. Try from your side. I'm just giving you a hint. Average minus 2 max is the border focus. Okay. Then I have applied depthwise separable convolution also. I am working on each filter separately. Depthwise separable convolution. And why this squeeze and excitation? Why this depthwise separable convolution? There are research papers based upon it. Again. This is not something in air. There are research papers. If you search now, you will get research paper on squeeze and excitation. You will get a research paper on depthwise separable convolution. Okay, everything is research proved. And why these things? In order to reduce computation complexity. Why these things? Fibonacci, in order to bring novelty in my work. If someone asks, what is the novelty in your research? Why should we publish your thesis? Why should we publish your research paper? You have to show some novelty. You have to give some unique name. You have to give some new maths. You have to reduce the computational complexity. You have to achieve some high accuracy, some high score. That is what you have to do. And it will be some tough call to explain each and everything which is present in the architecture as per the time constraints. But I have introduced you that what I've been doing in this architecture. I also told you that you can keep the same architecture. Instead of Fibonacci, you can introduce geometric series. You can introduce arithmetic series. You can introduce harmonic series. And please see whether the results are coming good by that or not. Here you can, once I trained this model, this architecture which I built, I've trained this. With the 5 iterations only, I got accuracy 98% in training and 99%, 97% in validation. So my model is not overfitting. I'm getting good score. 98% training, 97.5% validation, and the test score, the test accuracy is 99%. That means my data is a balanced data. My results are balanced results. You can see precision, recall, everything. Only with 5 iterations with this architecture, I have achieved 99% accuracy over brain tumor classification, healthy or tumor. This is what I have achieved in this architecture. And for you, I do have the notes. If you want, these are the notes. This is related to squeeze and excitation notes. I have prepared it from the research paper. This is the diagram. You are having an image, let us say 224, 224, 32. You do one thing. 224, 224, 32. Now, so all these things, let's say, here it is. Convert it into 1D format. The full form of SNE is squeeze and excitation. That means you need to convert it into 1D. Here it is 1D. And the number of channels will remain the same, 32. 1 cross 1 cross 32. Applying neural network over it, still the size remains same, 1 cross 32, but the weights will change. Channel weights will change. In squeeze and excitation, the concept is, let me tell you, in 2 minutes let me clear, what's the concept in squeeze and excitation? Well, in squeeze and excitation, as I told that, once you pass an image through a convolution with 32 filter, you will get a result as in this way. 32 channels. Every channel has some information. If you proceed this is image, this is convolution, you got this thing, then you apply pooling, then you apply convolution, then pooling, and so on. If you continue in this way, there is one issue. The issue is, okay, every channel is having an information. If you continue this way, it means that you are treating all the information important or relevant for each channel. But this is not true. Maybe at this I'm getting high information, at this I'm having less information. But at the moment, you're treating all of them with equal information. So what happens is, with squeeze and excitation, it splits. It considers each and every one. It first converts this thing into 1 cross, whatever be the number of channels is. Pass it to the neural network with different weights. And then again organize in this way. For every same thing happens. Now, as we have said previously, the information is same. Now the information will be different. Because now the weights, the values will get changed because of this neural network. This is the logic which the scientists, researchers applied. It's a very good concept. You can study the squeeze and excitation paper. And if something comes into your mind, you can integrate. Okay, but this is one of the concepts I just want to tell you. Fine. An average to max, a depth-wise separable convolution, series, skip connections, because here I have used the skip connections. I started with 21, then let us say 32, okay, 34, let's say 55, then 34 plus 55, 89. However, I have introduced skip connections also. Okay, I have introduced skip connections. And then I am going to add the result, what I am getting here. Okay, so with skip connections, you are going to achieve the good information flow in the data. Got it? And ultimately, you are going to get the result, good result. And such results are in front of you. This is the result. 99% accuracy I am achieving here. This is the confusion matrix. Okay, and this is the plot. You can see the plots. With every epoch, my accuracy is increasing, loss is decreasing. Got it? So this is what something I want to say in my session. Now please tell me how you found it. Please tell me.
Thank you, Professor. It's very informative, very good information. We may take some questions, if you don't mind.
Yeah, any questions, please, you can ask to me. If you're working, researching on this medical imaging, so you can ask the questions. Okay, and one more thing I want to say, you can connect to me on the LinkedIn. Okay, let me share you my profile link here. Okay, so you can connect to me over the LinkedIn. Here it is. I put on the comment. The rest you can talk to the madam also. She will let you know. She is in contact with me.
Yeah.
Okay. So
sure.
She will okay. So any doubt, please let me know. If you want to ask anything, you can unmute and you can ask.
Okay, I just start with one question I have related to these medical images. What do you think about image segmentation in the case of medical images? It is
It is segmentation.
Yeah, it is given represent a difference to the classification performance, or it's not very effective for the medical imaging specifically.
Well, segmentation is a technique to divide the image on the basis of pixels. Segmentation have different types like semantic segmentation, instance segmentation. In semantic segmentation, we focus upon the pixels. In instance segmentation, we do focus upon the pixels, but we also differentiate between the same type of element. This is what we do. Okay, so in segmentation, we are focusing on a particular region, and we are building that particular region. We are identifying that particular region with the help of segmentation technique. So we do have segmentation algorithms also, like UNIT is one of the algorithm, very famous algorithm, UNIT plus segmentation algorithms, where what we are going to do, we are going to focus upon, for example, tumor. So where the tumor is actually present in an image, we have to focus upon that, and with the help of the pixel, we need to bound that particular region. So this can happens with the segmentation. With the classification, it's a general thing to with the help of label, we can see that this is a tumor, this is not a tumor. But with segmentation, we have to also focus at the region where actually the problem is present. So there are two types of segmentation: semantic segmentation and instance segmentation. Okay. And if you want me, let me just take 2 more minutes to explain you this thing by a diagram. Okay, here it is. Let me share my entire screen again. Let me explain you with the help of a diagram. Okay, just a second. Let me first one more thing.
Yes.
I take the attendance. Yeah, I take the attendance from my side also. Okay, so here it is, and then I will explain you. Okay, let me share my entire screen. And it's a very important question that how classification and segmentation are different from each other. Okay, so let me talk about this. Well, this is, let's say in an image, you are having a person. This is a person. Okay, the person is made up of the pixels. So in segmentation, we need to identify the pixels. Identify pixels. Okay, for example, this is an apple. This is an apple. Okay, apple. So apple, these pixels, this region, entire region, I need to identify. So segmentation is a technique to divide the image. Segment, that's what we mean. Divide into areas. Okay, that's what a segmentation means. Okay, so by doing with the help of a pixel identification, we call as a segmentation, it's semantic segmentation. For example, in an image, you are having so many apples present. Apples present. If you apply semantic segmentation, then it will not say this is apple 1, this is apple 2, this is apple 3, this is apple 4. No, it will not say. But if you apply instance segmentation, then it will identify apples. It will also say that this is apple 1, this is apple 2, this is apple 3, this is apple 4. So that is instance segmentation. That means classification and segmentation both are working. It is separating apples also from one each other. Okay, and it is also performing the segmentation. And, or I will say, it is doing the entire region boundary creating. This is what happens in a segmentation. Okay, but in classification, we are in general. By extracting the feature, we are classifying whether it's a tumor or not. Segmentation is very much important in medical imaging. We do have a data related to segmentation also. Is any doubt, please?
Thank you for the clarification. And the database should be already have the masks, right?
Yes.
If it doesn't have, for example, the mask, should we proceed the technique to segment our medical images in an effective way, or it will not be effective?
Well, data set, if you are talking about, what about the data set? As I told, right now we are working on medical data which is in form of images. Okay, images data. Well, images data, because we do MRI, CT scan, and ultrasound, there are so many techniques which we apply, and we do have in hospitals, we do have such kind of data. Okay, apart from that, we might have a data in CSV file also, in Excel sheet also, on the basis of certain parameters. For example, they are doing diabetes detection, but these projects are now outdated. We don't have much in that. Okay, the point is, we are going to see internal organs, what is happening. These are the data set which is collected after, that is post. From that we can classify, but in images we want to see inside what is happening. Okay, so we are focusing upon early detection or early prediction. That is why images data set is very much important. And also I told that pre-processing is also very much important. We need to transform the image into particular resolution, then we need to perform the augmentation, then we need to do the normalization, then you have to build your architecture, and architecture you have to, it's influenced on some basic architecture, you have to see, you have to check out that what it would be. Okay, and you have to design from your side. Fine, and then you need to test the results, check the results, whether they are coming proper or not. Okay, got it. Yeah, please say.
Thank you. We have someone left his
Okay.
hand.
How to prepare?
Okay.
How to prepare? There are some people who raised the hands, and there is some question in the comment. How to prepare and train and then test a data set from product? That is why, sir, I have given one basic, the easiest way how to prepare. If you convert your data into data frame, then this is the easiest way which you can do, and you can prepare your data into training and the testing. Okay, here is what I have done. I am available with the data frame. I have this here I did train test sprint. So this is my training data frame. Then here I am having validation and testing from a temporary one. A very easy classification of the data. I am taking 80% in training, and what is left with me, I am further making half of it, 10%. Okay, so this is the best way, easiest way. You do one, this is my proposed approach, that convert data into data frame, do the basic analysis, and then divide the data, then build algorithm, then put that data, training data into that algorithm. This is what you have to do. You can refer to my code, sir. Okay. If you want, let me share my Kaggle also. This is my Kaggle profile. I want each and everyone to go through my Kaggle. There are so many medical imaging healthcare projects are present here. Yes, any doubt, please let me know.
Yeah, I just share it with them. Yeah, okay.
Okay, sure. Yes, any doubt? Some people raise the hand.
Yes, Joanne, please, can you open your mic and ask the question?
Yeah, you can open your mic and you can please ask the question.
Joanne? Okay, we have Kautar. Can you open your mic and ask the question, please?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Good morning. Good morning, Professor. Thank you very much for your presentation. I am a PhD student working on the classification of ophthalmic disease. In my research, I have achieved a good accuracy on test set, but I am facing an issue with the overfitting between training and validation. What's best practice would you recommend to prevent or reduce overfitting in such a case?
Okay. You are facing a problem of overfitting in the data. In order to prevent the overfitting, you can use some layers that is called as batch normalization and dropout. These two layers you can introduce in your architecture, in your code. Okay, so they may help you in preventing the overfitting of your model. Remember, batch normalization and dropout. Also, you can use regularization techniques like L1, L2. This is also possible. Okay. Introduce regularizer, or apart from that, you can use dropout, batch normalization to prevent overfitting.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Meanwhile, you can connect to me also to have a further discussion. What's the issue you are exactly? I haven't seen your architecture, what you have built. There could be other excuses, other possible solutions also. In general, I have told.
Thank you. Thank you, dear Professor, for this clarification. Joanne, can you open the mic to ask you a question if you have any. Yeah, he put the question on the chat, how to classify a type of cancer. Say
Type of
lung-
cancer.
Yeah.
How to classify type of cancer? Say lung cancer. Okay. Well, as I have shown you here, I am classifying brain tumor. Okay. Similarly, you will be having lung tumor or lung cancer data set. Okay. The approach which I have told you in this class, same approach you have to follow on lung cancer also, on breast cancer also, and chest X-ray also. Any problem statement if you are having, the initial approach is 101% the same. There is no difference. Okay. The point is, according to your data, algorithm may change. Algorithm will change. Okay. Here I have introduced some Fibonacci net, some architecture from my side. May not be this architecture will work on the classification of a lung tumor. Okay, some other algorithm will work. But you can take an inspiration from this algorithm. I've used some techniques like squeeze and excitation, deep depthwise convolution. Okay, apart from that, you can use some transfer learning. You can add few layers and how these things are working on. So classify, if you are having two classes, you have to do binary classification. You go ahead with transfer learning first. You first also, I just recommend you do create your own basic architecture of CNN, convolution neural network, and see how it's going on, how it's giving the result, whether it is showing good accuracy or not, or whether it is overfitting. Then try transfer learning. Then try to check out the latest research papers on lung tumor or lung cancer. Go through the latest research papers. It is mandatory. See what algorithm they have used, and try to identify the problem statement that what they have discussed, and then just prepare a solution based upon it. Okay, you'll get all the idea, but you have to read the latest research papers based upon your problem statement. Then only you can prepare an algorithm. Okay, got it.
Oh, okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Professor, for your whole speech. Your presentation was very interesting, and thank you again for your time and for your contribution to this international conference. We hope to welcome you on site the next time, the next edition, if this sounds great for you, and we can collaborate in other projects and events for our students. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. Thank you everyone for joining this session with me. You heard me very patiently, and I hope whatever the expectation for which I have been invited here, I tried my level best to deliver that content. And as Madam told that in future also we'll be having the chance to meet. Okay, so I hope for the best. If you have any doubts or anything you want to say, you can convey to her, or you can directly connect with me also. The links I have mentioned in the comment. Okay, so thank you, Madam. Thank you, everyone. Please take care.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. So we'll send you the certificate of participation very soon with Dr. Nirmal. We will prepare it for you, and we'll send this by email. Thank you, and see you on the next event. Bye.